Councilmember Clayton?
Here.
Councilmember Kendall?
Here.
Councilmember Werner?
A little bit delayed. He's stuck in traffic coming back from Philly. He will be here shortly.
Deputy Mayor Quinn?
Here.
Mayor Moore?
Here.
Okay, with the new format, all right, of our agenda in the council, council meetings, all right, there's a few hard formalities that have to be addressed, all right, for tonight's, that haven't made tonight's agenda. All right, so, all right, Melody, if you, all right, we'll start.
The first item will be a silent prayer, a moment of reflection. Please stand.
When we do that, why don't we all, as we, before the Pledge of Allegiance and the silent prayer, think about the tragic loss to Prize Johnson and his family and what they're going through at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay. Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As far as how Fred and Tony started out, and I don't mean to jump them or anything, but this is new to all of us, and we're going to make some little mistakes here and there, but this is a work session, and that's what it's about. So we can learn, you can learn, and so if there's a glitch here, a glitch there, we'll correct it in the future, and we're open to suggestions to how to correct it. So with that, we'll turn it over to Melody.
As to compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the following manner. The annual notice was forwarded to the Asbury Park Press, the Coaster, and Star Ledger on January 2nd, 2015, and posted on the bulletin board the same date. All notices are on file with the city clerk.
The first item on your agenda, all right, is a review of the format, all right, of the agenda. All right, since this is your first meeting, all right, since your reorganization, all right, we took the liberties to make some modifications to the agenda. All right, we're presenting it to you this evening, all right, for feedback, all right, and comments from the council.
Well, let's wing it and see how it plays out. And then I didn't like the second part of the Wednesday night agenda where everything's listed again, where it almost assumes like we're going to go through each item again. Are we going? Is that the plan?
That's at your discretion. We weren't sure during the agenda meeting how to list the work session items on Wednesday or to list whether to list them at all. So we just repeated everything that was on tonight's agenda. If you would like for us not to do that and somehow have a different format for the half-an-hour work session that will be on your Wednesday evenings, we're open to suggestions.
So are we. So let's just fly with it and see how it works
Go
out,
through
and
the
then
agenda
we
and
could
see how
amend
we're
it.
working from there.
Right,
The,
okay.
the way we listed it was follow-up, so that if you had any further thoughts or questions or comments about any of the items that had been addressed at the work session 48 hours prior, that you could take that opportunity to do so. But again, since this is all a new format for all of us, we're open to suggestion, and whatever you would like, we would be happy to follow your desired format. One thing I wanted to mention also is that you may have noticed that on the regular session agendas, we worked in a consent agenda. A lot of municipalities have a consent agenda whereby matters that are considered to be routine would be voted upon by the council with one vote, and then you would have individual resolutions listed separately thereafter. That's something that we thought we'd run by you on a trial basis to see what your thoughts were about that, so you didn't necessarily have to take a motion, a second, and a vote on every single measure, especially if those items are considered to be routine in nature. But again, since this is a whole new ball of wax, we figured we'd throw it out there for your consideration and see what your thoughts are. Municipalities typically do that as a time-saving measure. And lastly, there was a little glitch in the numbering of the resolutions. As you'll note, we are now starting to number the resolutions this year. And the numbering was done before the agenda was finalized in terms of where things were going to go on the agenda, And after all of the resolutions were numbered, we realized that some of the resolutions had to actually go earlier on the agenda, and rather than renumbering all the resolutions, which would have been very laborious, we kept them with the numbers that had already been assigned to them, but moved them. So that's why in some instances on the regular agenda for Wednesday, you'll note that there are later numbers earlier on the agenda and that they're not in numerical order. We're going to fix that in the future, but for Wednesday's purposes, I just wanted to let you know that happened, and the easiest fix was to modify the agenda rather than to renumber all the resolutions.
Sounds good.
Okay, so, yeah, no, I have some questions.
Go ahead.
So what would happen prior to us only having the one meeting is I have like a little list of issues with the issues by the council, so whatever they are, whatever they are, whatever my issues are, can I do them tonight when it's issues, what is it officially
You're still
called?
going to have the opportunity, all right, for members of the council to bring matters forward.
Both times, but I guess what I'm saying to you is, what would happen is I would bring it up on a Wednesday, 2 weeks would pass, and myself included would forget the issues. So if I bring it up Monday, can I get a recap from you on Wednesday, even if you don't get a chance to, I'm not gonna have 20 things. If I have 3 things.
Yes, you will.
I will. But even if you say, listen, I didn't get to that, that's fine, but at least it's only a day passes and not 2 weeks where I forgot whatever my issues were that I brought up the previous meeting. So if I bring them up tonight, I'll bring them up again on Wednesday, and if you have a chance to look into it, great. If you need more time, no problem. You know I'm easy with stuff like that.
We will follow up on your request as
Thank you.
expeditiously as we can.
Okay,
Hopefully, we will have it for the Wednesday night meeting.
thank you. That's it.
The next matter, all right, on your agenda, 2 special events. All right, Tom Gilmore?
Good evening. We have 2 special events on the agenda tonight. The first one is a Martin Luther King March. And that event will take place January 17th with a rain date of the 18th. The 17th is a Saturday from noon to approximately 4 o'clock. The march will start in the vicinity of the Second Baptist Church in Springwood Avenue. We'll go down Springwood Avenue to Main Street, take a left on Main Street, take a right on Cookman Avenue, go down to Cookman, and make a U-turn at Bangs Avenue, and take Bangs Avenue back to the west side and end up at the Second Baptist Church. We've reviewed this application, and we present it to you for approval.
Are there fees for either one of these events, Tom?
The only fee is the application fee. The police determined that they would be able to manage the traffic with the officers that are on duty that day.
So, with the application, can we put a 0 with a line through it, so when I'm reading it, it's not that you forgot the fee, just that there was
Yes.
no fee?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll do that in the future. I'll talk about that with the St. Patrick's Day Parade also.
Tom, how long do you think
Yes.
it's gonna take? About an hour,
Excuse me?
hour and a half?
How long is it going to take?
I'm just curious how long you think it's gonna take.
It'll probably take less than an hour. There's only 100 people that are going to be in the march.
I understand it's gonna be more.
Well, then, if it is going to be more, then it will take longer.
One thing that's bothered me, when we was talking about this, and it was presented, a comment was made that they're doing this for the city. They're doing it for the city, and also the comment was made that we can sign up people for voting. And that just turned me off right there.
Right.
It's not, the thing is Martin Luther King March, okay? His birthday, celebrated, but the comments that was made, I think, wasn't necessary, and it bothers me.
Okay, they did, and Councilman Kendall is absolutely right. They said at the end of the march they were going to have a meeting at Second Baptist Church, and part of that meeting was also going to include voter registration. That was part of the meeting that we
Is
had.
this a special events meeting? Where's this meeting?
Well, the event, the application is only for the march.
Okay. But where were these comments made?
What takes place after the march, the
Right.
city would have no control over. The special event was simply for the march.
Councilman Warner sent me an email today about insurance, so I did address it with him, but I'd like to address it with the council, if I might. Every applicant that uses city property for a special event is required to have insurance. Most of the time, the applicant does not get the insurance until the application has been approved by the city council, because they have to pay for the insurance. And there has never been an event take place here, as long as I've been involved with special events, that did not have an insurance as part of that. If they do not bring the insurance to us, the event will be canceled. That's been our policy.
So they physically bring it to your office and you file it somewhere?
Yes, it's in the, it gets filed in the special events application with the application itself.
So you don't ever take a verbal
No,
approval?
no. It's a rider that they attach to whatever insurance that they have. So we physically get that rider, and it's filed in the file.
Okay.
And everybody's been advised that they have to do this.
Yes, it's on the application. And we usually remind the applicant at the meeting that they have to provide the insurance. And in this case, Mr. Harris was in City Hall today, and he said he would bring that in on Wednesday. But if per chance the insurance doesn't come to us, the event will not take place. Next event is the Asbury Park St. Patrick's Day Parade. This will take place March 8th, which is a Sunday, and will always take place the second Sunday in March, is their game plan here. The route is the same route that they used last year, and the event was very successful last year. They start down at the beach at 4th Avenue, come down Ocean Avenue, up Asbury, down Cookman, and end up in the municipal lot at the end.
And there would be fees associated with that event?
Yes, we haven't determined what they will be right now. They have to negotiate with the police as to what that will be. Right now, we've only gotten the application fee from them, and they're a nonprofit, and so the council knows the fee for a nonprofit application is $50, and the fee for someone who's not a nonprofit is $200.
Thank you.
And Now, I have a question about procedure here. So the council is okay with both these applications, so will they be brought up again, or do they just get put on the regular agenda after this?
They just they're on the regular agenda already.
Okay. Thank you.
The second item on your agenda, are two presentations being brought forward by Donald Samet, our redevelopment director.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, two items for you this evening. Both deal with the city's land development regulations. One specifically is a regulation in our zoning ordinance, and the second is in the Central Business District redevelopment plan. As the city grows, our ordinances have to keep up with the times, keep up with current trends, what's happening, fix things that need fixing in our ordinances, improve things that need improving. As a city planner, these land development regulations come across my desk, and I'll often present them to you if I recommend changes, and at times where I don't recommend changes, but someone may want them. But the first item is for our zoning ordinance, and it deals with how we treat arcades, like coin-operated amusement type of arcades. Our current ordinance is outdated, in my opinion. It restricts hotels, bars, restaurants to having no more than 3 coin-operated amusements within them. I think this is a bit outdated. You look at hotels nowadays, they'll have game rooms, You know, they may include a billiard table in there, and may include some pinball machines. And in my opinion, why restrict that to 3? If it is accessory to a hotel use, a bar use, a restaurant use, and the use of the space doesn't become a video game arcade, why should we restrict how many of those coin-operated amusements a business should have? I think that it's a bit of over-regulation. I think it's an outdated portion of the ordinance, which I think was written at a time where video game arcades or parlors were probably more prevalent. We just don't see those nowadays. But in any event, I think these types of business owners may feel that having those coin-operated amusements will complement their business and not detract away from it. So I think how many establishment has should really be left up to them. Again, not saying they can create video game arcades, but that we shouldn't restrict exactly how many machines they're allowed to have. I think such an amendment to the ordinance would be consistent with the city master plan. Whenever you're amending a land development regulation, you have to look at the city master plan as the guiding policy document for land use in the city. And I think there are a number of reasons and a number of objectives in the master plan which are consistent with the amendment I'm proposing. And I do recommend to you that you forward the suggested amendment to the city planning board. By law, they're required to review it, comment on it, do a analysis as to if it is consistent with the master plan, as I've mentioned. I think it's a good idea. I think it's something we should consider to update this section of our zoning ordinance. And I'd recommend you pass a resolution referring it to the master plan, and I'd work with them further on the language in the ordinance and make a presentation to them as well.
Any questions?
Not that this matters, but most things aren't coin operated anymore, right? When I go to Dave & Buster's, you put a card in. You don't put coins in machines much anymore. Not that, I don't know if that matters in terms of the ordinance, but coin operated machines are, I mean, I guess they still exist. I don't ever see them in arcades anymore.
I do, but yeah, that's
Okay.
a good point. That's a good point. We may.
So does it matter if it's coin operated or card operated?
That's a good point. When I present this to the planning board, I can bring that up
Okay.
and say, hey, you know, the ordinance references coin-operated amusements, but they're often by way of card. So we may want to change the terminology there. I'll bring that up with them.
And I just had a question. When was this ordinance written, or this
Back, I forget the exact date, Councilman, but it was back in the 80s.
in the 80s? Okay. And the idea behind it was to avoid, like, a lobby to a hotel or a restaurant turn into an arcade?
In my opinion,
Essentially?
based upon the time that it was drafted and the popularity of video game arcades at that time, you didn't want, say, people opening up video game arcades within their businesses. So you have people hanging out at the games all day. And, you know, it's no longer a restaurant, it's no longer a bar,
Right.
it's more of an arcade.
Sure. Okay. And that there's no concern about that anymore, is the feeling?
Now, why I'm not concerned is because, and I place this in my memo as well, that you can only have those amusements as accessory to your business.
Yeah, okay.
So you'd have to meet the definition of a restaurant, which is 75% of the floor area has to be dedicated towards dining, seating area. If the machines become the principal or predominant use of that space, it's no longer a restaurant in that example. It's an arcade,
Yeah.
which we would not permit.
Okay, thanks.
That goes to my question of hotels, bars, restaurants, et cetera. What is the et cetera? Is it grocery stores? Is it?
Could be a grocery store, yeah, it could be a grocery store.
grocery store?
It's open-ended, yeah.
I have an issue. Okay, all right.
And the action of council would just be to pass a resolution to forward this to the planning board for their review, and planning board may come up with other recommendations besides those that Don has come forward to you with, and they'll send it back to you for your consideration to create and adopt an ordinance to amend our current code.
Councilwoman, I'd like to maybe clarify what I just said, the ordinance says they're permitted as accessory to hotels, nightclubs, teen clubs, bars, and other entertainment-related uses. So I take that back. It would not apply to, say, a retail establishment.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, I read it, you just said it. Why is it, it kind of makes no sense to me. It has to go to the planning board. Why can't we just say yes and so forth?
The municipal land use law, state statute governing land use in New Jersey, requires that any amendment to a land development regulation be reviewed by and commented on by the city planning board.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Don.
The next item, I'm going to ask John Leersdorf to come up and assist me with this one. John, you know, is the owner-operator of the Lake House, but the Lake House is looking to expand into the adjacent building to the west. However, it's all great, in my opinion, but the uses contained within the Lake House are actually only permitted where the Lake House currently sits. Back in 2011, the Central Business District redevelopment plan was amended to allow for instructional schools, which include music instruction, music lessons, sound recording facilities, mastering facilities, but only at the property where the Lake House is now. At the time, it was determined that rather to amend the redevelopment plan district-wide to say to allow for types of uses that are in the Lake House throughout the entire CBD, that things be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So because of that, in order for Mr. Leersdorf to expand his business to adjacent property, we'd actually have to list the Lake House use, the sound recording, music instruction, as a permitted use in that adjacent property. With that, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Lake House, but if, John, you could describe exactly what you do there and how you propose to use the space next door as well.
The Lake House is a music building. On the first floor, we have a small cafe, Mumford's Cafe. And as you walk into the space, we have a retail music store, which is called Russo, and they sell all different types of musical instruments. On the second floor, in the front, is a we give music lessons and group music lessons to people of all ages, from 6 months to people who are retired. We have over 350 students that come into the building every week, and we run programs, like I said, for all ages and all different types of music instructions. Most of them are ensemble-based, and the concept of the Music Academy is to engage people through private lessons and through group performance. And all of our students that participate in those programs also play in shows that we put on. All of our shows are put on in Asbury Park. You know, venues like the Pony and the Wonder Bar, the Lanes and the Saint. The Academy also teaches in different areas in Asbury Park. We began a music program in Hope Academy Charter School, which is a public school. They had no music program. We fundraised, and now we teach kindergarten through 8th grade music. Every student at Hope Academy takes music. We put 2 teachers in every classroom, and we also run 2 after-school classes. The after-school classes coincide with an ESL class for the parents who want to take English and study English classes. We provide enrichment and essentially childcare during that time period. We also are teaching, now we started teaching for Mount Carmel and other, actually Neptune has asked us now to teach some songwriting and some prevention classes. So the Academy is very community driven. We've done very well there, and that's one of the tenets that will be expanding next door. We have 2 recording studios that are behind the Academy. The recording studios are 2 of the nicest recording studios in the world. We've had some of the biggest pop artists of today, as well as some of the heritage New Jersey acts come and record there. It's been fabulous. We also teach out of there. Our students have access to see that and are very aware of what goes on in the industry. We've had a lot of these songwriters and successful artists come and speak to the kids in very small groups, which has been very empowering for the kids. We are starting at the end of this month. We're starting a Hip Hop Institute with the Boys and Girls Club in the Asbury Park chapter here, where we're going to start off with 3 different types of classes. One is we're in the process of building a very small recording studio that is, that's very much in line with the contemporary music that the students at the Boys and Girls Club know. It's R&B and hip hop. Most of that music is recorded on computers, so we've been able to get the gear for a studio like that very inexpensively. And we're going to set up a beautiful, small but beautiful recording studio right in their space. So we'll be teaching audio engineering coursework there. Some of the teachers, instructors that we're bringing are internationally known that'll come in and teach there. We'll have a second class that will start right away, which is a dance class. It's a hip hop, and that'll start off as hip hop, that'll grow into different types of dance. We also have a branding class that teaches the kids everything from how to make videos with their phones that they can use and how to upload them to how to make their own record labels. And those will be 3 classes. The concept there is to engage the youth of Asbury Park from the age of 12 to 18. They're having a difficult time, Boys and Girls Club, getting students to be interested. So we have a good sense in the music industry of what the kids like, and we'd like to bring that right there every day for the kids to have. They'll have access to that every day. The teachers are also interested and know a little bit about music production that are there, so they'll be very much involved all week long with that. So the idea is to get to 5 days a week at some point and to add multiple classes. So going back to our building, on the 3rd floor we have a business called Co-Works, which is shared office space. You can rent by the day, by the month, and you can also rent small private offices, and they have a shared conference room. They also wish to expand. They've outgrown their space. We have rehearsal rooms on the 3rd floor, which the Music Academy has had to take over because we've run out of space. There's also a music and entertainment attorney on the 3rd floor. There's a very successful music manager on the 3rd floor and a videographer. So basically, since we opened in 2013, March 2013, we've been full, and we've been fortunate to be full. And now we're at the point where we see the necessity to expand. In this expansion next door, we'll have the same type of programming. Like I said, Lake House will take a percentage of that. We'll have retail on the 1st floor in the new space, and then office space behind that. It's all music-related type of industry. On the 2nd floor, that's where the Music Academy will be. The extension will actually connect the 2 buildings. Right now, they're adjacent. It was subdivided for us, but now we'll connect it and on the 2nd floor, so there'll be shared access. We're in the process now. Monmouth University will come and teach their music industry program. They'd like to be part of what's happening in Asbury Park. Asbury Park has as you know, great identity, and we'll be attracting other universities as well to come and participate. On the 3rd floor, because right now it's only 2 floors, we'll be adding the 3rd floor, which will be similar to the Lake House building. There will be more office space, and the tenants look as though they're going to be music marketing, business, and a college, and another college coming in. So it's very music and education based, and that's the mission.
Great, great.
I do have a
Sounds
picture
good.
that I can show you if you want to see the existing building and the rendering of what we're going to do.
Professional development of famous musicians, and I think this type of business downtown helps foster that. So my recommendation to you is that this would be another referral to the planning board. In this case, it's an amendment to the redevelopment plan, the central business district redevelopment plan. Like with the zoning ordinance change, they have to review for consistency with the city master plan and provide comments as well. So my recommendation to you is that you do forward this to the planning board for their review and comment.
Great, thank you.
I just have one quick question. It has nothing to do with this project. It's a question I already asked Don.
That's the existing building. The Lake House building is right here, it's connected. This is the very similar facade of
Don, the question I asked you
Yes.
when we got this, not just about this project, no problem. It's about projects on Main Street projects. Whenever we have to open up the redevelopment, and obviously the city's incurring expenses. Do we open up an escrow account for everyone to cover those expenses, or do they pay an application fee?
We have not, although one thing we're going to look at, we've discussed internally, is possibly getting an application, a formal application process along with fees to help cover city costs for these amendments to ordinances and development plans.
Okay. And not just for you, for everybody. And all four of this have my total support, but again, it's a costly process.
It can be, yeah.
Yes, by the time he draws up something, by the time the planning board lawyer draws up something, by the time it's all done and everything, it could be very costly.
Right.
So we have to figure out a way how to cover that
Yeah,
cost.
We're looking, I've done some initial research, Mayor. I found a couple municipalities that may have an application process. So we're going to be researching those ordinances so we don't reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
Getting an idea of what the costs incurred to the city are. They're really not all that expensive, but still, they are costs incurred by the city.
Okay, thank you. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next matter on your agenda are two short presentations by Robin Kuhn, our Director of Property Improvement and Code Enforcement. All right, the first of which is the partial payment of an RCA loan. All right, the second are proposed changes to our certificate of occupancy requirements.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The first presentation that we were talking about is with regard to property located at 1012 Bangs Avenue. I'll just give you a little bit of background. In December of 2007, the city entered into an agreement with a property owner to lend them $20,500. It was an interest-free loan through the RCA loan program, which is a regional contribution agreement rehabilitation program. They're required in that loan program to take that money and rehab the property. And it's a 10-year term. They are also required as part of the terms of that loan to maintain the property as affordable housing during the term. After the 10 years, the loan is forgiven, and they're released from the requirements of the loan term. So we were approached back in, I want to say November. There's a letter attached, the first letter that I received anyway, dated November 24th, 2014, from a realtor, David Steiner, that represents the property owner, the current property owner, who is the borrower. And I should step back. Our loan is subordinate to a first mortgage in the amount of $192,800. That was taken in July of 2005. It's a 30-year term on that note and mortgage. And that mortgage is in foreclosure currently. So we were approached by the realtor representing the seller, the borrower, telling us that they had a short sale that was being proposed and that was approved by their first lender. And the terms of the short sale approval required that the city release its lien on our loan. So at this point, they proposed that we would take $1,000 in repayment to release the lien. So we went back and forth, and I negotiated with them, and I got them up to agree to pay us $4,500 in full repayment, or repayment of what was left. And that we would then agree, assuming that the council is amenable to this, that we would agree to release the lien, and they would be able to proceed with the short sale. Now, in the alternative, if we don't agree to that, they would most likely just proceed with the foreclosure. They've already indicated to me that the purchaser is not willing to assume the RCA loan. So, in the end, even if they did assume it, the term would end in 2017, we'd forgive the whole loan, and we would get nothing at all. So it's just another 2 years that they would have to maintain as affordable housing. So we're proposing that we accept the $4,500 in repayment. We would forgive the lien, or release the lien, and the property would then be released, and it would not be required to continue as affordable housing through the next 2 years.
Okay.
Any
I
questions?
don't have any questions.
Mayor and Council, I'd recommend, if you are in agreement with this proposal, and from the legal end, I certainly am, because as Rob has indicated, if this matter goes to foreclosure, the city is cut out entirely, and we don't get paid any of the funds back. And this is a good deal that we were able to get them up from $1,000 to $4,500. I would recommend that we do a resolution, basically indicating the city is accepting the sum of $4,500 in satisfaction for releasing this second mortgage that we hold on the property. And because there is some urgency associated with this matter, I would request the ability to draft that and have that as an add-on to the meeting agenda for Wednesday, with your permission.
Fine.
Okay, so the next proposal is a little bit more complicated. We're proposing that the council consider changing the nature and the frequency by which the Department of Code Enforcement does its certificate of occupancy inspections and issuance of COs to rentals for landlords that are renting properties. Currently, so that you have a background, currently what happens is, first of all, the city has no rental registration at all, so we have no way of knowing how many properties throughout the city are rental properties. So that would be the first thing that we propose, that the ordinance require that landlords within, say, 90 days or 120 days of the adoption of the ordinance, or whatever you find reasonable, that all rental properties be registered in the city. When they're registered, we would propose that from that date they're registered, the landlord has to have an inspection for a CO at that point, and that it be either annually or every 2 years, which is biennial. They would have to have a CO inspection for the rental properties. Currently, the way it works is when landlords rent a property, first of all, as I said, there's no rental registration. They rent the property, they come in, they fill out the application, we go out, we do an inspection of the property. We determine if it complies with our property maintenance code, and if it does, they get a CO for their tenant. The next time that property is inspected by our office is when they come in and they say that tenant's left and they have a new tenant come in. There are properties that go from 8, 9, 10 to 12 years sometimes without an inspection by our office. And those are obviously some of the problem properties we have through the city. There seem to be more of those over in the southwest quadrant. I met with Eric Aguiar, and we came up with, in the document that I submitted to you, a calculation of, we tried to approximate the number of rental units throughout the city, and I went through the different classes of properties. Now, the advantages to this would be, first of all, we'd be more readily able to identify our rental properties throughout the city. It would provide us with more regular access to rental properties to ensure they comply with our property maintenance code. And it would give us the ability to get a handle on problem properties in the city, with slumlords and those properties that people are living in that we don't get into for a long period of time. And those tenants are living in those properties. The only time we ever get in there is if people call in a complaint. The advantage to tenants is, this safeguards to tenants is that it ensures that their landlords are held to our property maintenance code and by way of these inspections. We're gonna be in there every year or every 2 years rather than every 5, 6, 7, or 8 years, and it protects the tenants to know that they're not living in these substandard living conditions. And then it also ensures the landlord a greater access to the rental properties throughout the term, because it gets the city into these properties on a more frequent basis so that the landlords know what's going on in their properties, whereas sometimes 5, 6, 7 years go by and the properties could be ripped apart and destroyed by these tenants. And this way, we're in there and the landlords know what's going on with their properties. This also would help both the landlord and the tenant in the event that there's eviction proceedings or any kind of proceedings in landlord-tenant court in the county. They would be able to utilize the information that we would be able to give them that, you know, would be furnished by way of these inspections that would happen more frequently. So what we did was we did this analysis, and I don't know, do you want me to go through it or explain how we did it? The analysis of the rental units and the revenues, or I think it's pretty
You don't have to go
self-explanatory.
through it for me. I
No.
have questions, but.
I have questions as well. so
Sure.
I can skip to that.
You wanna go first, Joe, and then if you hit mine, I won't go,
Okay,
all right?
sure. So first, thank you for bringing this to us, because I think it's a good beginning of a discussion about code. And my first is just a real quick one, and maybe I'm missing it. What's like the benefit to the city to have, besides just having inventory, so we know the rentals? I mean, it changes fairly regularly, like what's renting where? Like, what is the benefit beyond having an inventory of it?
Well, as I said, it's getting us into these properties on a more frequent
No,
basis.
I understand that, but your point A is identify properties throughout the city. Is there anything else beyond that, just documentation of it? Is there something I'm missing? Just to
So
document?
you have a rental registry.
That's it, there's nothing else going on?
Right now, what happens is, Mr. Warner, is that I went to the clerk's office and I tried to determine, because there is a form that, what happens when they come in to get the CO, they fill out as a landlord registering the property. It's not a rental registry per se that most municipalities have these days, and that form goes into a file, you know, down in the clerk's office, and there's no way to know whether that property continues to be maintained as a rental property or if it's been sold and now somebody's living there. So we have no way of knowing today whether a property that was registered a year ago is still a rental property.
Okay.
And it's just information that I think the city should have, and I think Eric kind of agreed from the tax assessor's perspective that it's probably information that wouldn't be a
Okay.
bad thing to have.
So my main question, I guess, is, I know it's important, like, I think probably most of us could point out the problem properties without having to go through every property. So I guess that.
Sometimes you don't know a problem property, like I'll give you a perfect example.
No.
Yeah, like the dog fighting ring on Prospect. Nobody had any idea dog fighting
Right.
ring was going on in
Right.
there. They were breeding, on and on and on. If code had been in there,
So
I'm only saying from the outside properties you can tell, other than that, the
100%.
inside properties you
Yeah.
can't.
So my thinking is, if you did across the board, the whole city, right, with first time, and you get everybody in the registry, you identify the problems. My feeling is that there are some buildings and there are some landlords that do a good job, and we don't want to beat them every year with the yearly inspection. Whereas on the other side, there are some slumlords that aren't doing a good job. So if there was a way that people could fail in, and it's a little bit, I know it's a little like layer of complexity, that might be a lot, but to fail into a system, like say there's a building and there's no violations there through the first CO inspection, the first year, you know, then they might fall into a less often check, whereas you would fail into a yearly check if you have a certain number of violations, so that we're not beating up the landlords that we know. So the benefit to the city and the benefit to the landlord, I don't see it if we're just hitting the same landlords over and over again that are doing their job, as opposed to focusing on the ones that are the problem.
The problem that I see right off the bat with that, I agree with you that there's landlords that maintain their property, you know, they take care of it, they make sure their tenants are living in great conditions. But the problem with that is landlords sell properties all the time, from one year to the next. You don't know what one landlord is doing. The next guy he sells it to might not keep the property up the way he did. And, you know, things change. And there's landlords that maybe one year they have the money, they're taking care of their property, and then all of a sudden something happens, and they're not putting any sudden it falls into disrepair. And again, some of these tenants are afraid to call, they don't know they have rights, and the only way for us to be able to get in there is if we have this, ordinance that would require that these things be done. Now, I'm not saying that it has to be done every 2 years even, but I'm certainly looking for something more frequently than just when there's tenant turnover.
Yeah, and the other thing I thought, if someone had mentioned to me the other day, that have the tenants actually, when they sign their lease and they do their CO, sign something and give them information that this is where they call when there's a problem, so that they know there's a number, there's a place to call.
For some things, what we don't
Sure,
want,
you would have
what
to
we don't want to
document
get
it.
into is starting to be, have tenants believe that this is the place to go for landlord-tenant issues, because we get that already.
Right.
We have to send them on to,
Sure.
freehold.
Yeah.
So that's where you have to be careful. We just deal with property maintenance code. We have a property maintenance code, and that's what our department enforces.
Yeah.
That deals with specific issues about a property, the physical elements of the
Sure,
property.
sure. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
spell that out for the
Right,
tenants.
right.
This is not designed in any way to penalize those property owners who have been complying all along. And part and parcel of this, companion to this, would also be that we would expect that we would put into place, as part of the ordinance, a property manager registry as well. One of the major problems we're seeing with a lot of the properties, problematic properties, is that there is no property manager. There is no one on site, and tenants have no recourse. Very often, what you'll find is that for example, we did an unfit hearing today, where people were living in the house. It was a single-family occupancy. It was broken down into 2 units. The owner of the property was incarcerated. There was no electric in the building. There was no water in the building. The only way we found out about it was through somebody finally coming to code enforcement and complaining. They had gone to who they believed to be their property manager. They were getting absolutely no cooperation at that point. So this is designed to also get us that property list, or that, when I say that property list, the property manager.
And to add to that, as somebody who's in landlord-tenant court all the time, if you don't get a certificate of occupancy, I, as an attorney, can raise that as a defense, and you're not getting your eviction.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I have no problem with you inspecting properties. I don't think it needs to be done yearly, but every 2 to 3 years, I have absolutely no problem with that. I think we can start then pinpointing the problem areas, but it prevents tenants from being evicted, so they have to get the certificate of occupancy because they're not getting their rent.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I think it's a good idea. My only concern is it's a little bit of, in certain cases, we're spending our time in places we wouldn't need to be if we're doing every single place every year when we know the landlord keeps the place up.
But you really just never know that for sure from year to year. I mean,
Yeah, okay, that's,
And the other thing is, that I want to add to what Mr. Nuccio said is, and I can tell you this from firsthand experience. In the beginning, when I started, I was prosecuting, and this is an ongoing problem in the court here when we have violations in these properties. There are landlords that are registering, that are taking title and they're conveying title, and it's a shell game, and they're transferring from one LLC to another within months, and we never know who really holds title to the property. So we're trying to chase after LLCs. Judge DiBenedetto can issue bench warrants for an LLC. So this gives us the ability to have these people come in. We would have to get more information from them from the very beginning. We know exactly who owns the property, who's the managing member of the LLC. We know who to go after when we have these major problems in the court, even.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not exactly sure about this, but aren't we short of cold workers?
We are.
But shouldn't we get up to date first with our workers before we start going out in the community, so that they'd be well aware of this?
The way that this was kind of put together was, I was here just to propose the concept tonight. I have a second step that I'd like to propose, assuming that the council likes this concept, that I'll be back to propose, and that is, and I'll just give you a summary. I've met with a company that does housing inspections And it's almost, we would almost privatize that portion of code enforcement, and we would bring in that company to just handle CO and TOT inspections. And then the people that are in code enforcement now that we employ would provide for quality of life, violations, complaints, those inspections. And it would give the ability for those people to go out and focus on those, which now it's a stretch. I mean, if we did this and just tried to use our people, there's no way we could do all of this. We'd have to hire more, and in hiring more, we'd have to pay the benefits, pensions, contributions. It'd be completely, crazy expense that we don't have right now. This way, we pay per inspection to this company, or whatever company we decide to go with, and we can still keep our current employees to deal with violations and focus on those around the city and be more proactive.
How many, what, okay, go ahead.
Jesse took part of mine. So the company would monitor when people's certificate of occupancy was up, and then contact them, or the code person, or whoever it is that we decide who does that.
This company, and obviously this has to go out, we'd have to bid, and people have to make proposals, but this company that I met with, just to kind of get an idea of what these companies do, what he explained is they actually come in, we pay them a fee. The fee includes one inspection and a follow-up inspection. And then the third inspection would be an extra fee. If somebody failed the first one, the second one they would go out and they wouldn't charge us for the second one. If they had to go back a third time, it would be an additional charge. But obviously in our fee structure, we would cover all that. And they provide for the clerical services as well as part of that fee structure. So they come into our offices and run that part of the program out of our office. They would bring their inspectors in, they would provide clerical services and administrative through our offices.
Okay, now the people who do summer COs wouldn't then be subject to the 3-year CO.
I didn't touch on that in this. That's something.
Right, because then that would be them repeating the whole summer CO
Right,
process,
right.
which gets an inspection.
Yeah, and I'd like to also come back to, this was before I started here, but I'd like, and I know we spoke through emails, but I'd like to maybe talk about changing summer COs to what they call seasonal COs, so that it's not just focused on summer, because there's people that rent properties around the city for short periods of time throughout the year now. It's not just a summer place.
Okay.
In response to Councilman Kendall's question, as far as the staffing and code enforcement, we have received word back from the state approving a waiver to bring on a 4th code enforcement officer. This 4th code enforcement officer is from our existing layoff list. So that will bring us up to 4 code enforcement officers, 4 full-time code enforcement officers.
So we just bring back somebody from before it doesn't open up for people to apply for it?
No, by law, you have to bring this back
We have to
first.
bring them back.
That's because civil service, right?
Under civil service, they were laid off 3 years ago. Before we can do anything in that title, we have to bring those individuals back.
Okay.
And now, the last piece was the revenues that this would mean to the city. I don't know if you want me to get into that tonight.
No,
It's in it,
because
it's in it.
we don't even have the cost.
Right.
Yeah.
The revenues are tilted in our favor, but because you don't have a cost factor.
Well, the revenues is if we just kept the inspections and we did them ourselves. If we.
Okay,
if
so
we're gonna go out and
what
hire
does
a
company A,
yeah,
so what does
right,
company A ballpark charge?
right. Probably $80 to $100 per inspection.
Then you're figuring, so it's a break even at best for us.
Well, no, because what I propose is that we raise our fee because you're not charging for that second inspection, which we currently do. Currently, we charge $100 for the first inspection, and if they have to go out for a second, I'm gonna say, I'll tell you right now, second inspection is $85. Actually, if they fail the first, they pay the whole $100 again. If we go out and what we do is we give a conditional CO where we allow them to have a 21-day period to deal with any minor issues in the property, so that if they have a tenant that has to move in, they get a conditional CO. They have to come back in within 20 days, having dealt with all those issues. We go back out and do a reinspection. We charge them $85 for that reinspection, and they get their CO. There's another 90-day conditional certificate we do, is a landlord comes in, and if they don't have a tenant currently, but they want to get a CO, because they're looking for a tenant, we charge them $150 to do that inspection. And then within 90 days, they have to come back to us with the tenant's information. and then they get the CO issued with that tenant's, under that tenant's name. So the whole fee structure could change, but I don't think it's unreasonable for us to look at a reasonable increase in the fees we currently charge to cover, and also, you know, not only cover if we were gonna go with one of those companies, but maybe to add a little bit of profit for the city, cover administrative.
With the fourth code guy, it would be more manageable to do it.
That, but I honestly, Ms. Quinn, what I'd really like to see happen is for our code enforcement inspectors to start focusing just on violations around the city and being more proactive. I mean, I had someone go out the other day in a period of 4 hours in one zone and come back with over 25 violations in one zone of the city. And I've gotten it broken down into 3 because I only have 3 code enforcement officers right now. That's just one afternoon.
They were just all exterior things?
There's some exterior structural.
I
from the
gave you
outside,
and the
yeah.
past city manager how to solve that a year ago, and that hasn't been solved. And I could solve that for $20,000 a year, not hiring 3 more code inspectors, just by putting somebody down at DPW with a scooter, a retired policeman, postal worker, no benefits, and that's all they do. What used to happen and was done away with. And so for $20,000, I could do that. Just out of curiosity, this has nothing to do with anything. Does the transfer of title start COs? If transfer of title, if I sell the building to
Transfer
her.
of title, what happens is,
You still have to get a
we have
CO.
different fee structures.
No. If I sell the building,
Right.
if there's a transfer of title, does it trigger off all new COs for the building?
If there's rentals in there,
Yes.
we haven't looked at that. I don't know.
Okay.
That's something we need to probably focus and look at a little bit closer.
We'll hear from the public later.
The answer is no.
Thank you. Can you give us a list of other towns in the immediate area that are doing this? Not tonight,
Okay.
because this
yeah.
is just information.
Yeah.
We're not taking any action on this
Very good.
in the near future. Near future being Wednesday.
You want me to come back Wednesday with?
No. I think I would want to know the company you've been talking to, the
Sure.
prices, what it would actually cost. You say they'll be working out of code enforcement. Is there enough room up there? How many personnel are you talking about, and how many inspections are you talking about doing a year? And I have the same problem Joe has. I think we'll be hitting a lot of good landlords over the head, which, I'm not looking to do. So I think maybe we should get some discussion from those people also, and from the public also, what they feel about this before any decisions being made,
Okay.
and get some feedback from both sides. That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, the other thing also, just so, it saves some of those people issues down the road where there's people calling in complaints on their properties. They don't have to deal with any of that because they've had an inspection within the last 2 years and everything's kind of in compliance. So it saves them the money of having to go defend on summonses that are issued for violations or complaints that are called in. So although they might be paying a little bit additional on a more frequent basis, they're also saving money over time because they're not dealing with complaints that people might call in. It might be bogus complaints or tenants that are just, they really want to cause problems for the landlord. So there's all different ways to, that it really affects both sides.
Any other questions? No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on your agenda, Chief Petty, from the Fire Department is here with 2 short presentations. The first, interlocal agreement with Freehold Fire Department. The second is the acceptance of surplus apparatus from Manasquan Fire Department.
Chief, can I cut you up 1 second?
Sure.
And again, this is a new process for all of us. And so there's going to be glitches, and there's going to be learning. And one of the things that I talked to Tony about was I didn't want department heads to have to be here Monday and Wednesday. So if there's follow-up questions, you can get them to Tony. I mean, I'm going to say Don Samet is not going to be here Wednesday night. So if you had any follow-up questions as far as those, I mean, tonight's the night we give them to Tony.
Non-technical types of questions.
Right.
All right, you bring them to me, I'll bring those back to the council.
Unless anybody disagrees and you want all departments here both nights, I just wouldn't do that to them. That wasn't the purpose of this, to punish them.
That's for sure.
So, is everybody good with that? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Sorry, Chief.
Okay. How's everybody doing tonight? Getting used to my reading glasses, I apologize. This first issue is, or this first item is a piece of technical rescue equipment called a Stanley set. Just to bring everybody up to speed, back in 2004, the Asbury Park Fire Department got into the urban search and rescue field. There was a gap in this area for such type of service. Those type of emergencies are what's known as low-frequency, high-risk emergencies. They don't happen very often, but when they do, you need a lot of resources to mitigate them. Over the last 11 years, through grants, bartering, just being very frugal, we've been able to acquire enough equipment to almost become what's known as a FEMA Type 2 urban search and rescue team right here in Asbury Park. Some of the things that we were unable to acquire successfully through the grant process, we've gone without. One of them being this Stanley set, which has a retail cost of over $25,000 to acquire it new. We applied for grants for this. We were denied. The opportunity through the Freehold Township Fire District to acquire this in exchange for training, in essence, it's a bartering system. They acquired it, they paid for it, have it, and it turns out that they don't have anybody trained to operate it. The advantage we have is through sending 30 of our members through the Urban Search and Rescue school down at the Lakehurst Navy Base. We have over 30 people trained to operate this piece of equipment. They were looking to get something for it. They want to unload it. They don't want it anymore. It never gets used. Through relationships, some of my members brought this to me, and I thought it was a pretty good idea and a way for us to garner this piece of equipment to further our quest to become a full-fledged FEMA Type 2 urban search and rescue team. I thought it was a good idea. In exchange for training, we would be able to acquire this piece of equipment. There's a memo that accompanied the resolution. Because there's a lot of moving parts, it was difficult to write a full explanatory body. So I did the best I could, but I'm asking for you guys to approve this resolution for us to be able to acquire this equipment. And I want to be very clear about this. The idea behind this is to have no out-of-pocket cost to the city whatsoever to acquire this equipment and fulfill our end of this agreement.
Questions? No, thank you. Very good.
The other item is a surplus fire apparatus from the Manasquan, one of the Manasquan fire companies, Manasquan Engine Company number 2. It's owned specifically by the fire company, not the fire district in Manasquan. We currently have a 1969 fire apparatus or fire pumper that is broken and it's not worth fixing because it's 46 years old. We acquired that for $1 in 2004 from the Wanamassa Fire Company. The reason we like having that, bless you. The reason we like having that piece of equipment around, and Deputy Mayor Quinn, you can attest to this, is to pump out basements and things like that. I know you're familiar with that issue that we had. We've used it in the past to do that type of work. We've also used it during Hurricane Irene, or we didn't use it, we almost used it during Hurricane Irene and Hurricane Sandy when we had issues with the wastewater in Asbury Park with the plant going down and unable to pump. We had approvals to use it from the DEP wasn't the best choice, but to mitigate a bigger health hazard by pumping wastewater directly out into the outfalls. Fortunately for us, we didn't have to use it. We were able to get the plant up and running. But these types of things are, it's a good resource to have to be able to do these types of things. And it's something I really wouldn't want to use a frontline piece of fire apparatus for, a $400,000 piece of fire apparatus for. This is one that can no longer be used in a front line, and it's free. So I'd ask you that you approve the acquisition of that piece of apparatus by resolution also.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony,
Next item.
I need about 3 minutes. I need to change the CD.
Tony, so like using Rob's inspection thing. So Joe and John have questions they want to follow up. So what in my experience, what happens is sometimes issues just die. So is it on Joe and John to contact Robert and say, these were the questions I have for some follow-up? Or Robert will contact Joe and John and say, as per some of the questions that you had? So this isn't either, if it passes or doesn't pass is irrelevant to me. I just want to move it forward one way or the other. Right, so the process is Robert will reach out to Joe and John, who have reservations about it, and then follow back up in front of the council? Is that how that's going to work?
It could be done that way.
Okay.
What I would ask, all right, is that, all right, while I'm the interim, is that those questions that you have, all right, they can be filtered through me. I would get them to the department heads.
Okay.
All right, and they could respond directly to, the council.
So Joe and John should follow up with you with their questions they have to Robert, and then you will filter it to Robert, and this will be voted on in one way, shape, or form in the next 3 to 6 months, if not sooner.
But also in this case, Robert still hasn't proposed the
Right.
complete package.
Yeah, right, I'm just saying, like, if you have questions, you gotta get them to
Yeah.
him.
There has to be an additional presentation.
There has to be for this
Sure.
piece.
Right,
Yeah, yeah,
more information on the list of towns that do. I mean, there were my questions.
No, you said like 4 things.
Okay, well, did you write them down?
I don't know.
Okay, well, they're on tape.
So, and this is a
We
great
can watch
This is a great example of like the process. So let's say it's me. Let's say I have a lot of questions for Robert regarding whatever's in front, or Kevin, since Kevin's here. I got a lot of questions about this pump. Is it on me to contact Kevin and say, and you forward it to Kevin to say, these are the issues I have, get me these answers before you put this back on the agenda? Or is it on Kevin to contact me and say, do you have some time to discuss these issues? Because what happens is exactly what John's saying, which he thinks it's on Robert, Robert thinks it's on John, and then the issue goes nowhere for 6 months.
If we're talking about complex responses that have to come back.
Just questions, just general
You have
questions.
basic questions, all right, that would have basic answers to go along with it. All right, I would ask that they go through me, I'll filter them to.
The department head.
The department head, and they can respond directly
Perfect.
back to you. All right, I don't have a problem with something more complex if there is some type of, right, interaction or communication between council members and the department head. All right, but just to.
Perfect, so
keep
now,
in the loop so we know what's
and I
going on.
personally want to know this process as well. So wonderful, got it.
We ready?
Mm-hmm.
We're ready.
The next matter on the agenda is my requesting of the council to be allowed to solicit competitive quotes for the search for a permanent city manager. I've been in contact with several executive search companies at this point. I've also spoken to our state fiscal monitor. A waiver has been submitted to the state. The waiver has come back today. Since we would be under our bid threshold, that we could go out for competitive quotes. I'm told right now that a basic search would be in the area of approximately $8,000.
Do it. At least that's 1 out of 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questions?
So I had a question, which I had before, which was, the last time we did this, it was my recollection that we had a company that we had contacted to get a quote from, and we, in the end, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you
I
were in it.
totally forget. You already said
Okay.
I was the cheap guy that wouldn't go for the 8,000.
Yeah,
So
so,
this
so
time
as
I'm
the
saying I'll
person
go
who
for
wanted the
8,000.
headhunter last time,
Okay.
the headhunter, my recollection of the headhunter last time was that we didn't have to RFP it. There was a company that we had previously used once, if not multiple times.
You don't have to RFP, but you have to get quotes.
You have to get quotes, so that's what we're doing. We're getting quotes, but we're not RFPing.
Correct.
Got it, sorry, I missed that.
There you go.
Under the
Okay.
bid threshold, we anticipate being under the bid threshold.
Oh,
but
for
we
the,
can go out
okay,
for competitive bids.
okay, I got you,
And-
sorry.
I don't want to take up too much time, but maybe a minute. Could you just, because I was not maybe as engaged as I wanted to be during that process. So so you go out for the bids for the headhunter. The headhunter, do they have like a time frame that they're gonna work to get us candidates, names?
That's all gonna be part of the package.
Okay.
What we're going to do basically is that I will reach out to our competitive companies. I will tell them exactly what we're looking for. I will give them a timeline, all right? Obviously, if we want to replace, all right, have a city manager, a permanent city manager within 90 days, all right, I'm going to go back to them and tell them is that within 45 days, all begun the process, all right, but to acquire resumes, all right, and to begin, all right, to, all right, basically weed out candidates and be prepared to provide you with, all right, the best 5, the best 10, all right, that would be up to you as to how many you want, all right, to go through final, all right, final interviews with.
And so when so a quote goes out, I guess what, like the League of Municipalities or something? Is that how it works? And then what's the time frame to respond to the quote
Well,
or the ad?
we're going to reach out, all right, to, all right, competitive companies. All right, there's at least 3, all right, competitive companies, all right, within the state of New Jersey. All right, it would be up to the company who, all right, basically, all right, wins the award or the bid. All right, well, I shouldn't say the bid, the quote, which we find to be the most responsible, all right, bidder at this point. All right, they would, all right, put the advertisement, all right, subject to the approval of the council in the League of Municipalities, all right, on the League of Municipalities website, all right, also all of the, all right, advertising for the position. All right, all resumes would go directly to them, all right, and they would begin that process of, all right, of selecting candidates to, all right, present to you.
So when do you think we would get ads back? Or when do you think you would have it narrowed down to like these 3, or there's already 3 companies you have in your head that you're thinking might be?
I know 3 companies.
Okay, all right, great.
With the bid threshold going out to solicit quotes, all right, basically, all right, we need to go to 3. There are
Okay.
3 major companies in the state of New Jersey, all right, I'll approach. If
Okay.
I don't hear back from one, then I'll go to, all right, another. All right, but
Great, yeah.
I've already had dialogue with all 3.
Okay.
And that can be done informally because of the, the anticipated cost of the services, where, as Tony indicated, we're underneath the bid threshold. He can reach out to these companies that he's aware performs these types of services in the state of New Jersey and describe what it is the city's looking for and tell them that we need their proposal by X date. And then once he gets the proposals, we will submit it to the council to choose whichever you're most comfortable with, cost and other factors considered, and then bring them on board, and then they would, as Tony indicated, come up with the process for weeding out the candidates, where to advertise properly. League of Municipalities is the first that comes to mind. There may be other publications and websites and whatnot that they're aware of, and they would really be the quarterback for this process, and then narrow down the applications that would be presented to mayor and council for consideration and interviews.
Got it, thank you.
So there is a resolution that we would submit to you for your consideration. It was in the packages. It's not numbered yet, but it was part of the packages that you would consider for Wednesday to authorize the city manager to seek competitive quotes for a headhunting agency.
Next matter on your agenda, all right, are boards, committees, and commissions.
What was that?
Boards, committees, and commissions. You have a package in, you have a package, basically, giving you information about, each one of the boards, and commissions, and which would have vacancies on them.
Well, Summit, like, does the Sunset Lake Commission exist?
It does not,
Because
as far as
I'm
I know.
on it.
No, but I thought you forwarded a list of the stuff we wanted on the
Yeah, I thought
agenda.
there was like 2 committees that we were comfortable with, Wesley Grove and Deal.
Deal Lake, and then I think Recreation was on the
Right.
list.
Yeah, I thought
And
Joe sent you the ones we wanted to put on Wednesday night's agenda.
there was only a couple,
Yeah.
because,
There's a couple.
yeah,
We're still waiting to hear back about the,
Well, if we don't hear back, tell them we withdraw, if we don't hear back soon. How can the chairperson not get back to us in a week?
when we're pretty much doing what he's asking, his request,
Right.
right? We're
So-
trying to accommodate his request,
So, I mean,
which some of us
Which I
disagree,
disagree
some of us disagree with.
but, Joe, will you resend it to
Sure.
Tony, the list?
And the idea with the committees is we don't want to do too much at once, right? So like Don Bracco called about the Delay Commission, so they need a quorum on Thursday's meeting. So we'll get that done, hopefully Wesley. Recreation is pretty straightforward. So we want to just do a piecemeal instead of just trying to get everything up and running at
Yeah, so
once.
3 would potentially be on for Wednesday.
I have the list here, if you give me 30 seconds. I wrote it down.
Or just email it to me and Tony, so we'll vote on it Wednesday. You don't have to go through it here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was just those three essentially, and special events.
Right.
Done.
Yep, 4.
Okay.
Next matter on your agenda is the metered parking on the municipal lot in Bangs Avenue Garage. All right, we just felt that this is something that we needed to have some dialogue about, all right, this evening. All right, you have no backup in your packet. We understood that there were some concerns, all right, that needed to be addressed before we move forward with this with the engineers.
Forward to the who?
Before we move forward with our city engineer.
Why the city engineer?
All right, because there's problems out in the parking lot that have to be, all right, that have to be addressed prior to us being able to meter.
What I wanted to do, maybe this is confusing. We have a parking study, and we know darn well the parking study is gonna say you need a parking garage, whenever we get this back. And we have a parking garage, and we're not charging for it. So we want to have a resolution ready. Doesn't mean we have to enact it, does it? If you drew up a resolution, putting the hours for the parking garage, and we said sit on it till we pass it, but at least it's ready.
Sure. It would actually need to be done by ordinance.
Okay, whatever, but right now we have nothing, and we know we're gonna do it eventually. Same with City Hall parking lot. Okay, we have nothing, and we know we're gonna do it eventually, and we could probably find the money to repave the parking lot through the parking meter money, but, okay, we'll do that, we'll repave it, then come June, we'll be talking about, let's pass an ordinance. So why not start the resolutions, ordinances, and get that over with, and then implement it when we're ready? Unless anybody has a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with it. I guess I would think I would do it all in one swoop, right? When we're gonna implement it, do the ordinance and/or the resolution.
Okay.
Why, you think that's stalling it? I don't wanna stall it.
That could be
so whatever moves it
2017, the way
forward.
we move.
Well, it doesn't make any difference if we have that now.
Yeah, I
and
can
then we
prepare the
still wanna
ordinance,
move
and
on
then at
until
such
next
time as you're
week.
ready to move forward with it, you can then move it forward.
But the more,
How you want to go about it?
the more important issue is what Tony's gonna raise, right? We have to clear these things up first,
Say what up?
these issues in the parking garage.
There is no issue in the parking
We're
garage.
talking about the.
And I know the issue in the parking lot.
in the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's the
Sorry, I was
issue in the
confused.
parking lot in here?
Well, before we even, all right, before we give consideration to, all right, metering it, all right, obviously the entire lot has to be repaved.
That would be,
All right, we would have to look at the rates, all right, the time, all right, that meters will be in effect, all right, because of, all right, city business here during the day, all right, as opposed to it being used as a public parking lot, all right, in the evening.
and all that I could do in a half hour.
And that's what we need to do.
Okay, fine, I totally agree. And the sooner we do it, I mean, I've been reading in the newspapers, we're gonna put park meters on Main Street for 3 years. And-
More than that.
Right, and we haven't done it, and we haven't even made a step. Now, we have a parking garage. We have a parking garage with no meters. And the ordinance right now says we can only charge for 5 hours a day at the parking garage. So we know that ordinance is no good, because it's gonna be more than 5 hours. So, I mean, that can be corrected, and then when we're ready to put the machine there, be it a machine, or be it a gate that goes up and down, then we can do that. As far as like paving the City Hall parking lot, you know, I would love, and we probably should do it, but then we should also pave 3rd and 4th and 2nd Avenues where we're like putting numbers on dirt.
Well, we have CDBG money that hasn't been touched, that's slated for paving. I'm on the committee.
And we have streets that have never been paved in 10 years, and we've never applied for a street paving program in 4 years. So, I mean, the City Hall parking lot's in better shape than 99% of our streets. And that's the truth, and that's pretty sad. So to blame it on the City Hall parking lot that we can't put parking meters out there, and it could be very easy as far as time frames. I'll sit down tomorrow and tell you how to do it. And if everybody says, let's hold off another 2 years, I have no problem. But we're never gonna get off state aid with keep on holding off.
I'm fine with doing the ordinance.
So I'll put together a draft and then submit it to you for your review and consideration. And if there's anything that I missed, we'll fill in the blanks and we'll move it forward at such time as you're ready to move forward with it.
Right, I mean, and with the garage, it should be simple. It took us a year and a half to get the state to update the 2012 report, which was never redone until 2014. So now the state gave us permission there, but we know we can only charge for 5 hours, so we know that has to be corrected. So the state garage should be very easy.
And seriously, Tony, there's CDBG money slated for paving, sitting in an account that we should have used up months ago that has not been used.
My only question, when is the parking consultant's gonna come back with their
The end
report?
of this month. They promised me
month.
the end of this month.
Now, would that influence the ordinance for the parking garage in any way?
Rate-wise, it might, but not actual meters. I'm sure they're gonna say. I'm sure they're going,
I just wouldn't wanna do double work, right? We do an ordinance,
All right, so
and
do
then
it in
they do it again.
February, and the parking
Right.
people swear up and down they're
Okay,
gonna
I
get
have no
this
problem.
report to
Just
me
Wait
by
a
February.
month.
Because in
No
order
problem.
to
No
charge a
problem.
fee, the rate has to be in the ordinance, so.
So don't do it for January, do it for February.
There you go. Next.
The next item on your agenda is a statement in opposition of LNG, all right, facilities in New York, New Jersey. All right, the New York, New Jersey, site. All right, Councilman Warren had asked us that we, all right, list this on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, sure. So there is a proposal that actually was up, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. Governor Christie vetoed it. It's up again, and essentially it's a liquefied natural gas terminal off the coast of New Jersey, New York, right there off the harbor. So we would have super tankers coming in and out, and the real concern is we have like a ton of natural gas. We imported 0 natural gas last year because we don't need to import. We have cheap natural gas here in the United States. So the fear is that it's going to be flipped, right? They'll get the permits, it's easy to get the permits to import it, and then they'll flip it to use it as an export terminal. So there's industrialization of the ocean, terrorism, supertanker spills, explosions, plus the flipping of our natural gas resources out to the ocean. It's not really political. Both parties, I think, oppose it. Like I said, the governor vetoed it. I was at the hearing the other night. Senator Beck was there in opposition, speaking in opposition, so it's seems like a pretty clear-cut issue.
You can.
So that's that.
Thank you.
They're looking for support from towns, coastal towns, because really the economy is our coast, right? That's what drives our economy. We don't want to do anything to jeopardize it.
Any questions? Next.
Next item on your agenda is, all right, a review of regular session items. All right, we place this on here, all right, as we move from, all right, this work session into, all right, that regular session for Wednesday. All right, is there anything that needs to be reviewed?
So then we should go to the package, and if anybody has any questions, they should ask them now, correct?
Yes, you don't have to. You can certainly ask them on Wednesday as well, but we thought we'd take this opportunity to give you a chance to question anything that's on the regular session agenda if you had any questions at this point.
Okay,
But that wouldn't foreclose your opportunity to do so at Wednesday's meeting.
right. So does anybody have any questions on that?
I didn't get through all of it yet.
Some of what, which we've already covered.
And those, like you said, John, those presentations aren't going to be repeated.
No, the
Those,
rate,
that's,
no.
yeah, that's all going to be taken off.
Unless, they're not gonna be repeated, but if anybody comes up with any questions, and there could be questions tonight from the public, which may trigger a question.
Sure, that would be
And
addressed.
then, again, get in touch with Tony immediately and send him an email, say, hey, this came up, can you have this by Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon?
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, most of the resolutions to me looked
I don't have any either.
fairly routine. So what's next? The public portion.
May I have a motion to open the public comment portion of the meeting with a 3-minute time limit for each speaker?
Move it. Second, and we have to have a public portion. And you can ask anything and everything, but what I would really like is if we, tonight we stayed on the agenda items, and if you have a problem with like the trees on DeWitt Avenue, you wait for Wednesday night to bring that up. I mean, but tonight, if you can just focus on agenda, but if you have something else, by all means, we can't stop you from asking that.
Okay.
But here's where you can have input on the agenda items themselves that you just heard about. So thank you, and who's up?
I need to
Well,
do a
Mayor,
roll.
you had a motion and a second. You
Yes.
just need to take a vote.
I knew,
Okay.
all in favor?
All right.
Yeah, my name is Marshall Robert. I live on 1701 Drummond Court. I also run a business in town. It's an engineering company, and we have offices on 527 Bangs Avenue. In response to an earlier council meeting where there was an effort to get a mercantile license for all businesses, regardless if they're retail or not, I guess I'm one of the first companies to actually endeavor to get a mercantile license with the existing code. It turns out it's a very, very cumbersome process. It involves the tenant getting a CO inspection, inspections by the zoning department, by the health code, by the board, by the fire department, all this for renting 2 rooms in an office building. I think it's cumbersome for the tenant, it's cumbersome for the owner, and it's certainly cumbersome for city staff. So I think in an effort to get the mercantile license as a revenue generator, it's actually turning into a negative component because of all the inspections. So if you're going to be insisting on companies like mine and a lot of the other offices, lawyers, doctors, whatever, having a mercantile license as a revenue generator, I think you better look at your process because it is way too cumbersome, way too expensive, and it really is an annoyance for your business community.
Are you done?
I'm done, yeah.
We are looking at the mercantile process, and to ask, be it doctors, lawyers, architects, engineers, was a total mistake on the city's part and wasn't supposed to be done. And so that's been corrected, where they're not being enforced, correct? And that was a mistake by the past administration, shouldn't have been done.
Okay, so the $150 I turned in for a CO was
Well, I think you're due a refund.
okay, so, because I just had an inspection from building department today,
From who?
from the building department. The last one, I got my 7th signature. I kid you not.
Well,
And that's just to get to the mercantile license.
okay. Well, then you may want to save it as a souvenir.
So, okay, don't make anybody else go through this process.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, on my list is, as you know, in my emails, is to have some sort of presentation on mercantile licenses. So maybe we could bump that up so we understand. You're not the only one. Businesses all over town are complaining about the mercantile license. So again, just so we. Okay, great.
They're complaining about the
Well,
process.
before you rework it, why don't you present it to the council? Because if there's the votes to get rid of the mercantile license, which some towns have done, then you've spent your time reworking it for nothing. And I'm not suggesting we have the votes for that in any way. I'm saying present it to us first before you use resources reworking it.
Right, because it'll be negative revenue generating under the current way it's being done.
Sure. And is this, this is not going to happen tomorrow again? If we're in the process of reworking this, Tony? I mean, it happened today. Yeah, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter Siegel, 609 7th Avenue. I live and work here in Asbury Park as a residential owner and operator of residential rental properties. I also, in addition to that, just I believe my perspective is somewhat also has been molded by 20 years of being a landlord in New York City and also advising for all of the major large pension and hedge funds in New York City that own most of the housing stock in New York City about policies and procedures and management implementation of COs and inspections and oversight of rental inventory, such as what we're talking about here tonight for Asbury Park. So I'm looking forward to continuing the dialogue in the future meetings. A couple of comments on what I heard tonight, Mr. Nuccio. So number one, I heard you say that you felt that the intention of the annual or semi-annual COs, whatever it ends up being, is certainly not to hurt the good landlords, but I can foresee that will in fact be the case. Good landlords who upkeep their properties and are compliant and abide by the rules and provide the city with good housing stock that's safe and livable, and maybe even more than safe and livable, maybe even nice and luxurious in some cases. will be taxed by the requirement to pay what is currently 100, and what I heard might even increase to some larger amount, $100 per CO inspection. Someone owns 100 or 200 or 300 units in town, and there's several people that do, that operate quality units. It's going to be a $20,000 or $30,000 tax per CO, if it's annual, if it's or semi-annual. To remind everybody, the citywide reassessment that occurred last year shifted a lot of property value from the west side to the Class 4C and other commercial properties to the east side. So residential apartment building landlords in particular are already bearing a disproportionate burden of the city's budget vis-a-vis that reallocation of assessment that occurred last year. To now discuss an additional CO tax and to get no benefit from it other than the fact that it's a tax to the city. The city's going to make revenue off of it. You'll capture some data, which I'm all for, but there won't be any additional oversight because these good landlords they're good landlords, and you're going to go in their buildings, you're going to see the apartments, you're going to check the boxes, you're going to walk out, and nothing's going to come of it. It's going to be a big waste of time in those units. Right now, you've got, as you do know, you've got an understaffed and overworked code enforcement department running around doing COs, $100, $100, $100, $100, and all of these apartments that are quality units. It seems to me.
I'm sorry, the 3 minutes are up. I'm going to have to.
Is it up?
Yes, going to have to cut you off.
Oh, no warning? What's that? I got to get a warning?
There was a bell.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
There's a little clock over there.
I'm gonna watch that clock.
I'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to try and speak fast. Robert Weiner, 601 Madison. I have two questions. First question is on the boards and committees. What's happening with the parking committee, my favorite committee? I didn't hear anybody mention anything about it. Is it being reinstated? Is it ongoing?
So the parking committee is its own monster.
Okay. He
Okay,
says
sorry.
he wants to speak fast, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want to know what's happening with that
Do you
committee.
have other questions? Ask them all at once.
Pardon me?
Ask them all at once.
Okay,
and
my
then-
second question is on the Bangs Avenue garage. We have free parking now Friday and Saturday night. If that's going to continue at all, and I anticipate it continuing at least for 3 or 4 months, we have to let people know that it is free. There's no sign there. People don't know it exists at all. I'd be willing to put up a sign that says free parking instead of me going across the street when I see people struggling for parking and say, do you know there's a free garage over there? There's a little piece of paper, handwritten, about this big on the sign. You can't see it during the day. At night, it's absolutely impossible to see. And my third question is, when we changed the Bangs Avenue garage to paid parking, I park there now. I've been parking there for 5 years. There is, believe me, no place to park with a residential permit. I haven't even bought one this year because there's going to be no spaces whatsoever. I know we're going to wait until the parking consultants come back. So those are just my comments. It's parking. I know there's lots to do, but I'm just asking those questions.
So I'll take two.
Okay?
The free parking, I 100% agree with you. And Tony, can we put one of our, we have parking enforced down at the end of Cookman, so can we just put free parking on Bangs Ave or something and move one of those? Particularly if we're gonna have it for the next couple of months, and I don't know if that's, if having it for the next couple of months,
Yeah.
maybe.
You
it's a
also need a
discussion,
sign, on that
but-
sign that's out there, there's no people that even know what that is, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm
Once
with
they
you
go down
on
that block, they don't even know.
Okay, so the parking committee, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, was an ad hoc committee that I
Correct.
joined 16 months ago.
Correct.
So what I think it merits is a conversation if we want to remain ad hoc, if we want to be some sort of official committee. But I think that merits a conversation with the parking committee because it's worked, quite frankly, in my 16 months quite well. But I know that previously people felt like the ad hoc committee was a problem. So we're having a dialogue about it. That said, the parking committee meets every Tuesday. We didn't meet this week because we're waiting for the report. Every first Tuesday of the month at 5:30 at the city manager's office. Anyone is welcome to go.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor, new council, officials, and all that persons. The parking issue is intriguing me. Discussing metering the parking lot out here. I'm not sure how that would work in reality because people come and go from City Hall all day to conduct business. To have to throw a quarter in the meter for a 15-minute increment and then perhaps you're delayed here, to a half hour, having to run out there again, throw another quarter in. I'm not sure how that would really be implemented in a good way for a municipal function. What I am concerned about is the parking lot to the west of us here, along the railroad tracks. That is a lot that begs to be a paid parking lot, long-term and intermediate term. There's direct access through the tunnel right into the rail station from over there. So one of the questions I have about that is there's a little strip mall over there also. Does the city own the parking lot in front of the strip mall also, or is that private property?
Private property.
Okay, private property. So the rest of the lot from the strip mall north, I believe, is city property. And I think that could accommodate, I would guess, close to 100 vehicles if it were laid out and striped and properly organized, perhaps even closing off one of the entrances that's there, kind of redundant to have several entrances to the same lot. I would suggest that as a first go at increasing your metered parking, you do it over there. It would beg to be spruced up with new paving, put in a meter system, and have people meter there to commute on the train or do long-term kind of activities here at City Hall. The lot here in front, I think you really should consider the day-to-day use. Metering at night seems to make sense. After business hours, I think you should consider long-term metering in the municipal lot out here. But during the day, you're going to have to really take a good look at that and see how that would work with people's needs to access City Hall. So please do this one over here. Plus the view from the train, that's what people see out there. They see a nice spruced up lot with nice new meters and stripes and lines and all the abandoned vehicles over there gone. I think it would be a good impression for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say, when I was being cantankerous.
You cantankerous.
I believe it.
If everybody read the Tri-City News, will get that one, and said, I could do that in a half hour. I agree with you. I'm not talking about doing the parking lot during daytime hours. It would be something flexible, which I've put in writing to be at the past city manager, to the department heads, everything, where, look, right now we have restaurants advertising, park across the street for free. So it would be, right, you couldn't do it on a Monday night because you have planning board. You could, right, a planning board member wouldn't get a ticket, but it could be done, and I'm just off the top of my head. From Friday at 7 p.m. to Sunday at and holidays. So, I mean, yes, it would not stop people from coming and paying their taxes where they got to put money into the parking meters. So I agree with you.
But to tag that, the only thing I'm going to say, Werner, is we close that tunnel at night, which prevents access from people who would be parking over here. And don't we, my understanding, and Tony can correct me if I'm wrong, is we have had repeated problems in that tunnel at night. Would that be a fair statement?
That's a fair statement a while ago, but yes.
Okay. I'm just saying, keep that in the back of your mind. I'm not saying it should take away.
Also closed?
Pardon?
If the transportation center is closed in conjunction with closing the tunnel, it's a non-issue.
Right, it is closed.
And it is.
Right.
Where are you gonna go?
Right, you can't get into the tunnel. Right, okay.
Right.
Jim?
Jim Henry, 514 6th Avenue. I'd just like to comment. Tonight, Mr. Samet made a couple of presentations to the council concerning the Central Business District and Lake Avenue. And if you recall, within the last several months, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, he's made several other presentations to the council. I would request that the council authorize Mr. Samet to look at the Central Business District plan, the Cookman Avenue plan, and to come up with an expansion of the permitted uses so that every time a business comes in and wants to make a change, they don't have to come back through the council, through the planning board, that the permitted uses in the plan be revisited now and see if they can be expanded and maybe save a lot of time for the business, the people who are putting a business in, or the members of the council and members of the planning board. I think the plan, when it was written, was a good one, but things have changed in the last 10 or 12 years, and people have expanded their horizons. They're thinking more out of the box. They're coming up with novel businesses that were never thought about when the plan was put together. So I think maybe it's time to authorize Mr. Samet to look at the plans and to give the council a comprehensive review of the plans and maybe make suggestions as to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Sedano, 1004th. Addressing the parking, probably the most anticipated document to arrive in the city will be the parking consultant report. And one of the first things that the parking consultant talked about was using the lot behind City Hall here, the one that Werner was talking about, the one that nobody even knows exists. So they already had some very creative ways of even rerouting buses so that things are a lot easier out front here. So a lot is going to be revealed in their report, and we're waiting anxiously for it. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things in it that we're not going to like, but all in all, it's probably the most comprehensive thing that, the most comprehensive document that we'll have to guide us in parking, both now and in the future, because they're looking at the growth of the city, both east side, west side, all around the town. So we're just waiting for it. And whether you make the parking committee keep it ad hoc, whether you make it an official whatever, that's up to you guys. But we work diligently at trying to answer everybody's parking complaints, and there are hundreds of them. Thanks.
Thank you. Close the public.
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Matters from council? Joe, you want us, how do you want to go down the road?
Doesn't matter.
Joe, you're there.
I'm here? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have much. I just wanted to, I helped save most of my comments for Wednesday night, but I wanted to thank the public for getting up to speak as someone who's been out there in the public and had things to say. Like Warner, those are good comments. Peter, those are great comments. Like things that we need to hear, and thank you for bringing them. It's a service to us, I think, to hear those things, obviously, things that we don't always catch. So thank you for that. And yeah, I was late. I had a personal matter that was important that I was going to have to miss the meeting, but I was able to make it. So I apologize for being late for the first meeting.
I just want to thank those of you who came out tonight. I know it's a terrible night, it's raining. We appreciate you coming out tonight, and this is an experiment. We're working on making the city council more available to the public. So this is your opportunity to tell us what you think, to give us feedback, and we look forward to hearing from you. We also want to know if you like this process, and thank you.
Jesse?
Well, I'm glad Tony's still here because one day last week, I ran across an incident, and one of your policemen did a professional job, and his last name was Love. And I was very proud of him. He came about maybe 50 or 60 kids out there, a little angry, and he handled it very professional. And I was very proud of him, and I said, I'm going to mention your name and keep doing a good job. There's another thing. I just want to ask Tony, have we touched base on the time clock yet? 'Cause we've been talking about that for a while.
I've had some discussion with Ricky Gartz on that.
So how long do you think this is going to be?
I'll talk to Ricky again about it.
So we're saying about, maybe next week we can have something on this? appreciate that, because,
Doubt you'll have a clock by next week.
excuse me?
I doubt you'll have a clock by next week. You'll have more information.
Can we get that information Wednesday?
Yeah, I'll talk to him.
Thank you. Jesse, you got anything?
Just one more thing. We talked about name tags, and that's another thing I'd like for you to talk about. We like to talk about, and as soon as possible, get name tags on the employees at City Hall. Just like the police officer, I didn't know him personally, but he had his name on there, and I was able to give him a comment. And at City Hall, I think everybody that worked there need a name tag, whether we want to be critical or we just want to be nice. And I would appreciate you get to that. Thank you. That's it.
So I just wanted, and again, just for Wednesday, but can I get an update? We went out, we RFP'd a bunch of professional services. So can I get some sort of update on if they're halfway through the applications, if they're gonna have proposals by the end of this month? But some sort of update on what we're doing with all those professional services. That's it.
Yeah, and follow up on that, we can all get a copy of all those, right? Because there was 9 copies furnished as per the RFP, so I asked for a copy today of all of them, so every council person get one and start reviewing them also, make it process quicker. Again, just like everybody else said, this is something new, something I think's needed. We're gonna make some mistakes here and there. We like your feedback, we like your constructive criticism. If you see any way of making this better, please speak up. And if anybody has any ideas right now, I'll reopen it to the public. But if not, then again, I thank you all. I think this is very good that we get a chance to ask the questions. And now maybe something triggered today where there was some good comments to the microphone. And it gives people 2 days to like, wait a second, think and pick up the phone. Hey, John, I was there, I heard about it. Are you really gonna vote yes on this? Because here's a good reason why to vote no. And we do have open minds, and we have been persuaded to change our votes by some very good arguments. And so, again, anything you can do to help us is deeply appreciated. Conley, comments from the city manager? Fred?
And I have nothing there.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Again, thank you.